Do you want to shut down the microphones? No, I don't want to do that.
No, the mics are on.
Turn them on.
Recording's on. Okay, I'd like to call the meeting of the Budget Review Committee to order. It's Thursday, July 24th, 2017, and it's 7:01 PM in the Aldermanic Chamber. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Alderman Richard Dowd, Chair.
Present.
Alderman at Large Laurie Wilshire.
Absent.
Absent. Alderman at Large Brian S. McCarthy. Present. Alderman at Large Brian B. O'Brien.
Present.
Alderman David Shoneman. Alderman Ken Siegel is not here, and Alderman Sean McGinnis, I am here.
Okay, we have a quorum. The members not in attendance are Alderman Wilshire, who's on vacation, and Alderman Siegel.
Okay.
Also in attendance are Deputy Corporation Counsel. Yeah, I'm still here.
Very good.
Laurie Clark, and the Director of the Library. Okay, public comment. If anyone that would like to speak, please state your name and address.
Good evening, Richard Lannon. My home address is McGrath Road in Pelham, New Hampshire. My office address is here in Nashua, and own a couple of downtown mixed-use buildings, and also on the Downtown Improvement Committee. Just briefly, I spoke at last week's Planning and Economic Development meeting. I know most of you probably weren't part of, of that particular committee, but for your sake, and anybody else, I guess, listening or watching, I'm here regarding the Performing Arts Center, and the item on the agenda, I believe it's the third item about the for the option of 201 Main Street. And just wanted to make a couple of quick comments, and the biggest comment is the Performing Arts Center, even a couple of people this past week have said, this is all about, we've already spent a bunch of money on the old Alex Shoe building. In reality, when the Performing Arts Center study started, Alex Shoe was downtown. They weren't going anywhere. So the Downtown Improvement Committee actually helped fund $40,000 to fund that study. Just a study for Performing Arts Center for Nashua. And does it make sense or not make sense? And if it does, what size? And again, it went on for a couple of years, probably, give or take. And again, the Alex Shoe was downtown. So this is about, number one, does the Performing Arts Center make sense in Nashua, period? And number two, if it does, how big and where should it go? And about halfway through that process is when, obviously, Alex Shoe, as we know, moved out. I don't think anybody's happy that they moved out of downtown, but I think it did end up giving a huge opportunity. And in the process, and I thought the study was very well done. I attended many of the meetings. I've read it online. I've listened to Duncan Webb. And again, I think what they've done and what they've accomplished up to date is tremendous. And it's just the fact that I think now we've got an opportunity, not just because we have an empty building downtown, it's because that, in my opinion, I believe the opinion of the Downtown Improvement Committee and a lot of other people I've talked to, that is the place to have it. It's near parking, and I would just love to see, obviously your committee support the option money of the $36,000 to get the ball rolling, and hopefully go before the Board of Aldermen, what I believe will probably be next month or whatever, to approve a bond to move forward with the Performing Arts Center. I know I sent out a bunch of articles, I think, to all of you, whether you've had time to read it. I know you've got a lot of stuff that gets sent to you, but some of those articles are very interesting, and especially the one I encourage you to read, if you haven't had a chance, is the one that, and this is again, non-biased to the state of New Hampshire, that they just happened to write an article saying how in just 4 communities or areas, like the Monadnock region and so forth, of the economic benefit of the performing arts in those 4 communities alone was like $120 million, if I remember right, in 1 year for the state of New Hampshire. So the economic benefit for Nashua, for the Performing Arts Center, I think it'd be huge for downtown and huge for Nashua. And again, wish you your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else, public comment? Your item, Director Cummings, is the third one on the agenda. Okay. Next item.
Yes, communications from Dorothy Clark, Deputy Corporation Counsel, regarding summary of costs item changes in the collective bargaining agreement for the Nashua Public Library employees.
I have a motion to accept and place on file.
I'll make a motion to accept and
Okay.
place on file.
Okay, the motion is to accept and place on file. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay. Unfinished business,
There is none.
new business resolutions.
We have a new resolution, R-17-109, establishing a expendable trust fund for the purpose of accepting contributions to to construct future sidewalks and bike trails along the northeastern boulevard, and to the transfer of $12,234 and change from capital projects activity, quote, northern eastern boulevard sidewalks / bike trails, into the expendable trust fund.
Do I have a motion? Alderman McCarthy.
Move to recommend final passage.
Okay, the motion is to recommend final passage to the full board. Any discussion? Alderman Shoneman?
Just have a question. Is there an expectation we're going to be getting donations for this, contributions for this?
Anyone have any?
I don't know.
Alderman McCarthy?
Often when we do these, it's because there's a requirement in site plan approvals to make a contribution.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Any other discussion? All right, seeing none. All those in favor of recommending final passage to the full board of R-17-109, please say so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries and is passed. Next item.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have another resolution, R-17-112, approving the cost items of the collective bargaining agreement between the Nashua Public Library Board of Trustees and the Nashua Public Library Employees, AFT, FPE, Local 44831, from July 1, 2017 through to June 30th, 2020, and related transfers.
Do I have a motion? Alderman O'Brien?
I would like to make a recommendation of final passage of R-17-112.
Okay, and would the people, the library and the corporation, deputy corporation counsel like to come up to answer questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I arrived at this meeting a minute or two late because I was also attending the Historic District Commission meeting. And I've just received word they need a quorum for a vote, and they've asked my presence back there. If I may excuse myself.
Okay, do you have any quick questions before, you or,
I don't have any questions.
all
Thank you.
right, thank you.
Very good.
All right. So who wants to give us an overview?
I'm happy to. Director McCormick and I negotiated this collective bargaining agreement on behalf of the library trustees. And I will say I found the library union to be very professional and organized. It went reasonably smoothly for a union negotiation. The changes, I outlined them in the memos. I know sometimes that's a little easier than hunting for them in the redlined copy of the CBA. Basically, looking through my memo, so in Article 9, work week and work schedule, we put some language to provide that if it's one of the Sundays when the library is open, there's a ahead of time sort of sign-up schedule. It's treated as overtime, so we agreed to a provision that if due to weather or storm or something, the library was closed on that Sunday, that there would be some compensation to the employees who had agreed to work. In Article 14, paid leaves, personal leave, the contract provides for 4 personal days, and prior to this proposed contract, 3 days came out of sick time, and now that will be 2 days. The tuition reimbursement fund is going to increase from $3,000 to $5,000. Probably one of the most significant out of those, in Article 38 wages, we negotiated a wage increase of 2.1% for fiscal 18, 2.15% for fiscal 19, and 2.15% for fiscal 20. The hiring ranges are going to remain the same. They're not going to increase by those percentages. And it's as you could probably tell from the wage increases, the proposed duration is 3 years.
Questions? None? Okay. Thought I had one, but, okay. So if there's no questions, the motion on the floor is to recommend final passage to the full board of R 17-112. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr.
Next.
Chairman, we have a third resolution.
Mm-hmm.
R 17-113, relative to the transfer of $36,000 from the Department 194 contingency, account 70100, general contingency, to Department 101 mayor, which account is 683434, other expenses, acquisition costs, for the purpose of entering into a forthcoming option agreement for 201 Main Street.
Do I hear a motion? Alderman McCarthy?
I think we need Mr. Cummings here for this, because I believe that there he is. There will be a proposal to
Explicit
amend it.
timing on his
Yeah,
behalf.
that's good, yeah.
But, for purposes of discussion, I'll make a motion to recommend final passage.
Okay. Motion has been made to recommend final passage to the full board of R 17-113. Before we have discussion, Director Cummings, would you like to come up? Do you want to give a brief overview or just take questions?
No, happy to, Mr. Chairman. Again, for the record, my name's Tim Cummings. I'm the Director of Economic Development for the city. I'm here before you tonight seeking final passage for a transfer request, transferring $36,000 out of contingency and into the mayor's office in preparation of what I hope to be gaining in a later date, future approval to enter into an option agreement to hold and preserve the building located at 201 Main Street. And that would also be in due and anticipation of a bond request that will be forthcoming for us to execute on a performing arts center on behalf of the city. That it's a pretty straightforward petition, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Question, Alderman McCarthy.
Did we need to approve signing the option also, or is that considered to be implicit in the resolution by its wording?
Director Cummings.
I believe you will see a forthcoming petition asking for that expressly as soon as I hear back from the property owner that they're agreeing to all the terms.
Alderman McCarthy.
Is there any time constraint on getting that done, or?
Yes, there will be a time constraint, but having talked to the current property owner, he understands our parliamentary process and he wants to work with us. He does have concerns that if this drags on for too long, he has raised, but at this point in time, he understands we're in summer schedule and he's willing to work with us through the process.
Any other questions? None? Thank you. Alderman Shulman?
Perhaps Mr. Cummings knows, I can look it up, but I haven't had a chance. What is the tax revenue? What has the tax revenue been on that building in the last few years?
Director Cummings?
I believe off the top of my head, it is just slightly less than $50,000 a year. This in theory would cover not just the taxes, but slight overhead for carrying the building insurance and whatnot.
Other question, Alderman Shoneman?
I understand that, and that makes sense. I guess reason for asking a question is, I know we're not debating the Performing Arts Center tonight, but we have the potential to keep a $50,000 a year tenant in there potentially, or not, and the Arts Center would not be a taxpayer, if I'm correct. It's just part of the consideration.
Alderman McCarthy?
That's not necessarily true. The part of it that is operated by the nonprofit as the Art Center may or may not be taxable depending on some other things. It's anticipated that the first floor would still be leased. That would be taxable. There are residential tenants in the building. If they stay, those properties would be taxable. So the tax revenue does not go to zero because we own the building.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Alderman Shoneman?
Again, do you have a sense of where we're at on the, are we doing anything for the fundraising of the $4 million endowment?
Director Cummings?
Yes, my understanding is, and I have not been overly privy to this, but there have been a group of downtown individuals, both residents and business owners, that have been working to build the momentum necessary to start this endeavor. In fact, there's been talk about doing some sort of kickoff event at the building if we were able to procure an option and be able to move forward with the bond. So that is that is coming together separately from the city very nicely, from the private sector side. I would also just remind this body that in a previous meeting with the Planning and Economic Development Committee, I outlined and made a recommendation that a steering committee be formed to help guide that very initiative, and developing the governance of that is going to be necessary, and along with the operations and the preliminary design of the building. So that would be something that I think would become more abundant as time goes on, but there are efforts right now to start on that very process.
Alderman McCarthy?
A couple of things. First, there was discussion at the PEDC meeting last week that we actually ought to have at least an option on the building before we start going out and asking people to donate to the endowment. I have actually spoken to some of the people who are looking at raising the endowment, and there is a significant interest there from people whose fundraising ability is quite real to generate a substantial amount of money towards the endowment. I would also point out that in addition to us still getting some tax revenue on the building, if there are tenants in the first floor and perhaps residential tenants, we'll also get the lease income from that. So that may well exceed what we currently get for tax revenue from the building.
Alderman Shoneman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I was unable to attend the PEDC meeting. I'm still getting over a cold, and I thought it best not to be there and cough all over everybody at that night, as I did in some of the
concur.
previous meetings. I'm sure that was
Good
welcomed.
move. Good move.
I'm doing better now. Thank you for asking. I'm not entirely convinced that this is the right location for the Art Center. I believe an Art Center is the right thing to do. But I'm also believing that we need to keep our options open and do a very thorough analysis of it. And I think that to spend the $36,000 to keep that option open for us is the right thing to do. I don't want to see it, wouldn't want to see it go down for lack of this, but I don't want to see it be passed based on bad information either. So I think it's worthwhile to have the $36,000, to have that option available to us, and then when the time comes to hear things like Alderman McCarthy just expressed about the tenants and the leases and the tax revenue and all that kind of thing, all these things factor in as well as the endowment. I fully understand that someone's not going to want to contribute to something that doesn't stand any chance of a possibility, and I think having the option in there is good. I think the taxpayers also, however, don't want to spend $15.5 million on something that with the expectation the bond, that the endowment's going to come in, that it may or may not come in. So these things have to kind of work simultaneously. So again, we're not debating the project tonight, and I don't want to take time to debate the project. We're talking about just this option. But just as that group wants to see some resolve on the part of the city, I think the city, the taxpayers, need to see some resolve on the part of the arts community, the volunteers, whoever's going to come up with those funds. So I would support this, and I look forward to a vigorous debate on the project overall.
Yeah, it's a big undertaking, and there are several steps involved, and they're sequential, so this is like step one. Any other questions? Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, it's probably more of a comment, but basically, in my communication with many of the people downtown, I have been approached and they are encouraged, and they would like us to take this particular option because it's exactly what it is. It's the first step into what's going to be a long process. It will be vetted, whether the Arts Center and everything, but if we don't jump now and take this particular option, we're putting a lot of onus onto the building owner, which seems to be, has been going out of the way for the community and should be duly noted. And so I'm willing to keep this option alive and then discuss at a later date the merits of the particular, but I would hate to lose the whole project at this particular time and not picking up this option. I think it's a legacy for the city to do so. Thank you.
Alderman Shulman?
Thanks. I would add, too, that I think part of the conversation needs to ultimately be around whether or not that is the best location. I think that Mr. Cummings and the mayor have toured some theater space in the city. They took a look at theater space that's owned by Bonhoeffers. It's not available for public use and rent, but it was a heck of a lot less expensive. Very nice space, and a lot less expensive than $15.5 million. And perhaps there's some other location. I'm thinking about the Mill Yard. Maybe there's something in the Mill Yard that could be good, too, and perhaps less expensive. So while we're going to spend, I think, $36,000 here, we're not signing a PNS at this time, right?
Right.
And it may or may not prove to be the best place for us to be, may or may not prove to be the right scope, all kinds of things. And that's part of the vetting that I think Alderman O'Brien spoke about that I would certainly support. And those are the questions that need to be resolved. And but to keep this alive during that period, should it be determined that this is the best place, would be good.
Signing a purchase and sale without a bond being approved would probably not be prudent. Alderman McCarthy?
Yeah, I just want to point out that we've had a study done by a very good professional consultant on performing arts centers that, I mean, we know this is the right scope because that's what's determined to be sustainable here. The location is recommended as the best one that they know of. It's possible there are some private sites that we didn't look at, but it's not like we just picked this because it was empty. Consultant says because of the nature of that corner, this is a very good place to put it for the benefit of downtown.
Alderman Schoeneman?
One of my questions on scope, the reason I mentioned scope is because when that consultant was here making his presentation, I asked what kind of increase in overall arts activity do we need to see in the city of Nashua to reach his break-even point? And the answer that I got was we need a 2/3 increase of overall arts activity in the city of Nashua to reach break-even. And that sounded like a big jump to me. That's why I was questioning the scope. And I appreciate the consultant's expertise in the field, but my gut reaction is a 2/3 increase is a lot.
I think perhaps the reason for needing that is because we haven't had a place that could support that kind of activity. Alderman McCarthy?
And that number was actually very realistic. It's based on the fact that we have a service area that is 100 miles from side to side, and that a lot of people live in that area, and the demand for arts in that area is fairly high. So if you simply look at the model that other places use and how far their reach is to get people to come, it is a realistic model that is proposed in the consultant's report.
Director Cummings?
I know we're getting a little off topic this evening on the petition that's before us, but I just want to echo the comments just made by President McCarthy, and to also just further make clear the point that even the shining examples around us have a gap in their operating budget, and some are even more sizable than the currently the program that's recommended for Nashua. In fact, Nashua has a unique opportunity to drive down that operating subsidy either through the endowment, through the rental income, which will help make this a more sustainable model, which is why it was an attractive option.
Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of recommending final passage of R 17-113 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Director Cummings. All right. Next item,
New business, there are none.
none. I'm assuming there's nothing we want to take from the table. General discussion. Seeing none. Public comment? Nope, all the public left. Remarks by Alderman? Alderman O'Brien.
If you may indulge me, Mr. Chair, today is the 30th birthday of my daughter Kayla, so she's watching. Happy birthday, Kayla.
Happy birthday.
If she's watching this, it's not a
Yeah.
happy birthday.
I was thinking that. Yeah. All right, any other remarks by Alderman? Favor motion? The motion is to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned at 7:34.
All right, let me just shut this down, please.